SSGTX3 asks, I think that games today are a lot easier and shorter compared to previous generations. Is it to encourage casual gamers to buy games, or is it because of the size of games and the time the publishers take to make them? I hear a lot of people talk about how games are kind of short, but honestly, a lot of the games we call short, at least in their single-player component, are like, 8 to 10 hours? I think our memory betrays us, I love the old games, but the truth is the reason we remember those games taking forever is because they were really fucking hard. Games today have a lot more forgiveness when it comes to lives, saves, checkpoints, etc. If you were to play the old Castlevanias and whatnot and never die, they weren't that long. We can't compare all new games to, Zelda or Final Fantasies, which are still 40 to 80 hours. So, yeah. Also, the idea that there's some kind of coordinated effort to encourage casual gamers is really in the mind's eye. Yes, there's a lot more push for casual gamers now than there used to be. But that's not because we're moving away from hardcore games, it's just because the market's bigger. A lot of people see stuff like Kinect and the Wii and they say, oh, why are we moving away from, what the game industry was? We're not. Just a bigger industry. Having new things doesn't mean you've thrown away the old things, and if you look at the game lineup, we've got plenty of long hardcore games. We just have, in addition, casual stuff. Johnny asks, do you plan on making a Game of the Year list? Was briefly mentioned during your Siren Blood Curse review. Short answer, yes. Video commenter 100 asks, which Zelda game do you think is best and what I assume is supposed to be why? I think the third one, A Link to the Past, is the best game. I know a lot of people consider Ocarina of Time the best one, and it was pretty good, and it would be maybe tied for second place with Twilight Princess. But I gotta give it to the third one, and not just because I remember playing it as a kid and yada yada back in the day, la la la. Mainly because one of the things I always loved about Zelda from the first game is that it had an overworld. Back then, there wasn't so much sandbox stuff going on. I don't really know if I want to call it sandbox, but, whatever. And that overworld was full of stuff. Trees, bushes, forests, stuff in your way, rocks, houses, whatever. And Ocarina of Time, as much as I love it and do consider it one of the best games ever made, was to a great extent a disappointment for me. In a lot of respects, so was Twilight Princess, because what I always loved about the Zelda franchises that the handheld still kept getting right is all the stuff. And I remember walking out to the Hyrule Field in Ocarina of Time and thinking, what the fuck is this shit? It's a field. In the outskirts, you had like trees and some bushes and stuff. Of course, there still was rocks, mountains, forests, all that shit, but they were separate areas, like their own individual area. It was part of an overworld, and, it's still one of the best games ever made. But that lack of stuff really bothered me. Frankly, they were limited by their technology, and it was amazing that you could see across the field without bullshit fog getting in the way. And Twilight Princess did a better job of having stuff, but it was still kind of just like window dressing stuff. Now, from what I've seen from some of the videos of the new Zelda, whatever it's called, something sword, spirit sword or something, it looks like they really got the stuff right. I could be wrong, but I think they got the stuff right. Majora's Mask sort of got the stuff right more, but I have a lot of faith in the new one. But the third Zelda is got to be my favorite because they got the stuff right. The overworld was full of stuff. So I got to go with Zelda 3. Also, fun fact, in the future, if I ever direct a Zelda movie, I would probably base it on the third one. The whole dark world, light world bouncing in between, I think would be really cool to do. Poncijus asks, hi Ed, I'd love to know your personal all-time favorite game and your favorite developer. Also, it would be interesting to hear your opinion about PC gaming. Is it really dead? Is it going to die? Well, let me do the second question first. No, PC gaming is not dead at all, and it's not going to die. Yeah, consoles have taken center stage, but there's still plenty of stuff that you need a mouse and keyboard for. Just look at this here. Civ 5, StarCraft 2, a whole list of casual games that haven't come out for either, WiiWare or Xbox Live or PSN that are totally available on Steam. And not just that, but games that you can buy for the consoles, aside from the fact that they'll look better on PCs if you have a ridiculous rig, we don't all, but they're cheaper. I mean, this holiday season, $60 games on consoles are $5 on Steam. I mean, the Steam sales are ridiculous. PC isn't dead at all. That's a myth. That's total. Yeah, anyone who tells you that shit doesn't know what the fuck they're talking about. PC is doing just fine. And seeing as how the next console generation is going to be the last console generation, and on live can effectively be considered PC anyway, the only thing that's endangered is the console. In fact, the console isn't even endangered. It's on a ticking clock. It has a very limited amount of time left. We're going to be looking back on the console in less than 10 years going, hey, remember the console? We won't be saying that about the PC. As far as personal all-time favorite game, who knows? I mean, it would have to come down to an obvious one, like, Mario 3 most likely, if not Zelda 3. Probably Mario 3. And favorite developer? What do you think, really? I mean, Nintendo. They may not have the most powerful system, but they do have the most powerful development teams. Their Tier 1 developers beat everyone else. Period. BioWare, great guys. Not as good as Nintendo. And before a lot of people start saying, oh, well, this game for Nintendo is a piece of shit, this game was a piece of shit, I don't mean the console. I mean the developer. When Nintendo develops a Tier 1 game, they knock that shit out the park. And so, yeah, Nintendo. Zazoa asks, I wonder what your expectations are for Uncharted 3. Even though not much have been released yet, it would still be fun to hear your opinion about it. Maybe what can be improved from the second game, even though that game was almost perfect, like some new features and such. And I hope I'm not annoying you by asking about U3. Guess other people ask you about this a lot. Actually, other people have asked me about it, but at least you asked me about it after some footage came out, other than the 30-second teaser. A lot of people actually asked me after the 30-second teaser, to which I could only say, I mean, if it's anything like the first two, it'll be fine. Uncharted 1 was a real solid game, looked great. Uncharted 2 just refined everything. I'm sure the third will continue that. Naughty Dog has a pretty polished track record, and that's what matters most. Which means you don't even have to say chances are it'll be good, because fuck chance, it'll be good. So yeah, that's what I think. liamjhackett asks, do you think we'll see graphics in games stop where they are, and we'll be focusing more on story and gameplay? I say this because nowadays we're seeing that companies are complaining about costs of games getting too expensive. Ubisoft. I would also like to see your views on the resurgence of indie companies. Do you think it's an oversaturation? Or will this become the norm and AAA companies will feel the weight and become more like indie companies themselves, in the sense of having only 5 to 10 people work on a game? Again, this is not the trend for the industry. This is just a bigger industry. And in a bigger industry, you've got more room for stuff like indie companies and small development teams, where back in the day when there wasn't really a Steam service for discount games, there wasn't really a PSN, Xbox Live, in order to sell a game, you had to stock it in a store. And in order to stock it in a store, you needed a lot more backing behind it. And anything with a lot more backing behind it had to be a bigger game just to get it done. This is not an altering of the industry. It's just an expanding industry. Your AAA titles are not going to get touched by this. What is happening is because these expensive games, as you say, are getting so much more expensive, we are seeing less new IP in the non-tiny game area. That's not because of the indie games, that's because of the expense for larger games. But at the same time, not every game costs $150 million. Not every game is a Grand Theft Auto 4. There are a lot of games that come out at $40, $50 that cost as much as, say, Dead Space as opposed to Call of Duty. And also, if you mean oversaturation of indie stuff, I would maybe agree with you in the cell phone market, iPhone, even the iPad, Google phones, etc., Google Droid, etc. But, on the PSN, Xbox Live, Steam Network, there really aren't that many. I mean, relatively. If you consider this oversaturation, 5 to 10 years from now, there will be so many more indie games coming out that maybe then you could say oversaturation. But right now, I don't think it's saturated enough, frankly. A lot of these indie games coming out are some of the best games of the year. I would put Super Meat Boy on my Game of the Year list, which I will do. Spoiler alert. And that game came out at $10, is now most places $15, which is high for an indie game. Of course, during his holiday Steam sales, you could get it for like $3. And, that's just going to continue, and that's great. It's also important to remember that these indie attempts become huge games sometimes when they get picked up by larger publishers. Look at Valve. They made their Source engine and a lot of their stuff open source. People started tinkering with it and made a zombie game. They bought it up, developed it with those people, and it became Left 4 Dead. The same goes for Portal. And Left 4 Dead and Portal are two of their 3 or 4 biggest franchises. So, it's cyclical. It's a good thing. Also, as far as the whole graphics thing goes, no. We've had a slowdown in graphics speeding up because this console generation is longer already than most due to GPU this generation just being really high and the recession. And the only really improvement in graphics outside of PCs we've seen is in, better software, better game engines. But, we'll have a new console generation in about 2 years or just under. And more importantly, stuff like on Live being PC-based, you'll have your constant progression of graphics just like you do in the PC market. So no, graphics are not going to stop. They've sort of slowed a bit for the reasons I just listed. But stop? No. Ed out.